everyone, and welcome to a new episode. We are here today with our guest, Jimmy Jönsson, Director of JVVA Fire and Risk. Jimmy has been running a successful fire engineering company in Spain for over 10 years, but before being where he is now, he started his career as a fire protection engineering graduate from Lund. And we'd like to start with that and ask you, how did you get into fire engineering?
Well, actually, that's quite interesting. It's before going to university, I was looking at different career options and so on. I didn't actually know that there was a fire engineering discipline that you could actually choose, an engineering program. So when I saw that, I became really interested in that because it's so wide. You could basically work anywhere with any type of firm. So I simply choose that one, and I was lucky to get in, and I started. That's how.
Well, you are extremely right. You can work in this career almost everything. And because we are working internationally, we know how this domain looks like in the UK, in the US, in Canada or Australia, but we don't know that much about fire engineering in Spain. And I think this topic would be of interest for our listeners as well. So, Jimmy, how does fire engineering look like in Spain?
Yeah, it's actually I'm pretty sure it's different from from other regions and countries. Well, pretty sure I know that it's different. Here in Spain, it's first of all, there's no university degree in fire protection engineering, so there's actually very little knowledge about it really. And the few companies that do it, they are either international large companies or small companies where the owners or the engineers actually have some kind of degree or formal education in fire engineering. But due to the lack of fire engineering in the market, in the construction industry, it's pretty much limited to performance-based design. It's not that normal to have fire engineers working on code compliant projects, which would be the main case, for example, in UK or US. Here in Spain, we're pretty much limited to justifying deviations from the building code. So it's, I would say, really high percentage of performance-based design projects. So that's the main difference when compared to other regions and other countries.
In theory, a fire engineer needs to be able to offer solutions in order to protect human and buildings from fire, right? But in reality, you need to deal with much more than that. You have to deal with local authorities, with landlords, with architects, with other engineers, and essentially to explain to them why they should do things that way. And I think it must be a highly demanding job for someone at the beginning of their career to do that. So when is a fire engineer competent enough to get out there and do all this work?
Yeah, that's a question I really like that subject actually. And basically, my opinion is that first of all, you need some kind of formal education about fire engineering. I mean, to be honest, most of the fire engineers that are working on fire engineering projects, they're not fire engineers. They are either mechanical engineers or structural engineers or plumbing engineers with some kind of on top of that degree they've learned about fire engineering, mostly on the job with large companies and so on. So first of all, I think you need the basics. You need to understand the basics, and I think if you don't have a formal engineering degree in fire protection, at least you need some courses, maybe a master's course or so on. And after that, I think you actually need to be pretty supervised by someone that can actually teach you about this. My personal opinion is that even if you actually had a degree in whatever subject, it could be any electrical engineering or structural engineering, you need to learn on the job. as well. You can't just be a graduate and come out and think that that's enough. So I certainly would recommend, or my personal opinion is that 3, 4, 5 years of good supervision on the job is minimum, and then you probably can start to do things not entirely on your own, but with a lot more freedom than before. So my advice or opinion is that formal education and then work experience on top of that.
Well, we certainly have this advice from someone who knows really well this field. And you also are part of the board of the directors at SFP. And you've also been president of SFP Europe for 2 years back in 2014. So, can you tell us more about your connection with SFP? How did you get involved into this organization?
Well, basically, it's back at university. Uh, SFP is this. It's one of the, well, it's the organization with Global Association of Fire Protection Engineers. So they have pretty good contacts with the universities, and I would say the majority of fire engineering universities where they have fire engineering degrees, they have some kind of connection with SFP, because it's all the material produced by SFP, the SFP handbook, standards and guides, it's being used in education, and you certainly use them in projects. So if you haven't come up with SFP during your university education, you certainly will be in touch with them somehow when you start to work, because that's where the information is. The standards and guides for protection engineering is mainly produced by SFP. So that's how I got in touch with them, really. And that was more than 20 years ago now. And then I just got more and more involved, sitting in committees, being on the board, and so on. So I think it's a way of giving back to the fire engineering community, to progress it as much as we can, because it's basically that fire engineering is such a young discipline. We can say that maybe it's less than 50 years. I would say that during the 80s, maybe in the 70s, we were actually starting to do this. And if you compare with structural engineering or civil engineering, that's hundreds of years back.
Yeah.
But fire engineering is such a young discipline, so it's still unknown on the market. And I think being involved as an engineer doing this, I think SFP is the organization to get valuable network contacts, knowledge. Really, you can do courses and so on. So I think SFP is a key component for fire engineers across the world, actually.
Indeed, and since we're speaking about this topic, I'm interested in finding out your point of view on this matter. So, do you think that fire organizations or even companies worldwide are raising enough awareness on fire engineering matters?
Especially that because this is a young discipline, as you've mentioned.
Yeah, no, we really need to do more. Raising awareness is one of the keys. I mean, we have, if you look at, I would say top 4 countries. If you look at United States, in Europe, I would say UK, Sweden, and then New Zealand, Australia. It's known. Fire engineering is known. It's part of the construction industry. You always use fire engineers. But in the rest of the world, just because of us being a young discipline, they don't know about what can be done. I mean, you need fire engineers when you do specific and singular projects, large airports or very complex metro stations, or whatever sort of building you can think of, which is complex and singular. Fire engineering is a must on those projects. So in some countries, we're not they're not even aware that the profession exists. So we really need to create awareness and make sure that universities start to take this into account as well. Maybe starting up. I'm not saying be bachelor's or master's program, but at least to provide possibility to choose courses and so on. But we're lacking. We're behind on creating awareness, and I think that's where the coordination and cooperation between organizations such as SFP and others. We must just forget that we're not competitors. I mean, we should cooperate more and really create awareness on the market, because fine engineering is definitely here to stay, and especially now when we have sustainability being pushed hard, we have an energy crisis and so on. That will create new building materials, new building methods, and fire safety will be an integral part of that. So for me, it's no doubt that awareness is one of the key issues as well.
Yeah, hopefully this interview will raise awareness of this fire engineering matter more and more.
Yeah, I
And
hope so, and that's one of the key objectives, I think, as well.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we have to do something to raise this awareness, right?
Yes.
Um, Jimmy, you've also been part of the Department of Fire Safety Engineering at Lund University, doing research on fire risk computer models. Have you ever thought about remaining in academia? What determined you to get into consulting?
Well, it's I started out there at the department, but you want to try to see real projects and do some real work as well. And consulting was just a natural step, I think, and I started with that. And it's good to actually be part of problem solving and create things and do things. But I never I never let the connection with academia go away. I do part-time teaching at different universities and courses related to fire engineering. So I think I never will give that up. I'm pretty comfortable and I like teaching. So it will always be part of what I do. But consultancy is obviously my main work. Yeah.
And we find this extremely useful and inspiring for our listeners. So the last question for you is, what piece of advice do you want to give to a graduate on their way of becoming a successful fire engineer?
It's it's a few actually. Try to move around a bit. Try different regions, maybe different parts of the world, different countries. It's pretty easy if you're a fire engineer. I mean, our skills are needed really anywhere. So I think it's just when you're young and graduate, try to take advantage of that and travel around a bit and work in different places, because you will see and learn so much which will benefit for your career. And another topic I think is really important is that there's always you can continue to improve your skills and your knowledge. So go to conferences, learn about new emerging issues, take a course now and then with maybe subjects that you haven't really read for a couple of years or and so on. So I think continued professional development by doing extra courses and go to conferences to learn new things, and try to travel and work with different companies around the world. That would be my first advice, and then all the rest will sort itself out for sure.
Thank you, Jimmy, for today's interview. I think our audience is going to be inspired by your story, and hopefully they will take your advice into account.
Yeah, I hope so too. And And thank you very much to both of you for the opportunity to discuss this with you.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.